And then I was like, no, this is like really good wisdom that I can't get from my parents anymore.
Right.
And to me, that's love. Like sometimes love is giving wisdom, sharing your knowledge. Today, it's your birthday. Not sure what that means? Let us introduce you to this powerful concept and our community. We are Helene and Christina, and our mission is to empower, teach, and remind women to celebrate themselves. Combined, we have over 36 years' experience as therapists in private practice. Today, though, we come to you not as your therapists, but rather two women in this life stage with you, your friends. Our podcast promises to talk about the hard or uncomfortable topics in a way to empower you, laugh along the way as part of our healing, and find joy in life. What sets us apart? We leave you with gifts each and every episode.
Now that we're friends, let's make this official. We would love to help start your Thursday mornings, so make sure you follow the show wherever you listen and sign up for our free newsletter at yourbirthdaypodcast.com to receive the episode in your inbox weekly. Welcome back, friends. And if you're new to the show, we are thrilled you are here. This episode, we're going to chat about the gift of love. Friends, get cozy. This episode, we hope, fills you up with warmth. Love is often reduced to romance, performance, or self-sacrifice. But here's your reframe. Love is not what we feel on our best days. Love is how we show up, especially on the hard ones. Our intention today in this episode is all about how we give love, receive love, and we're going to bust through how do we withhold it from ourselves and find the gift of changing that, saving it, and giving it to each and every one of you out there. So let's talk a little bit about, and this could be, we're not trying to be too clinically with this, but if we talk about like, how did we learn love?
Yeah.
That's a big one. I mean, I think for some people, it's what was mirrored in their home, what
Yes.
they saw on a TV show. Maybe if their family didn't show a lot of love, maybe perhaps they had a neighbor that they went through, and maybe that was a beautiful demonstration of what love was shown in that family. Or perhaps, not that it wasn't beautiful, but it didn't align with, did they really feel love? So I think it's going to be interesting as we start this little chat. So we could talk a little bit about, how did you experience love? Was it conditional? And I don't know, we might need to give a little bit of like
I think we need to explain that.
examples. Okay.
It's so
Yeah.
interesting. Like, clearly been a psychologist, doctor in this stuff forever, right? And I've been very open that Ethan and I go to marriage therapy. And I remember like one of our first questions our marriage therapist asked us was like, how did you know you were loved as kids?
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, I ask clients that all the time. And then I'm sitting there with myself and I'm like, "Hmm, mm." And I
Mhm.
think, depending on your relationships, even within your family, but that's your first experience of love, right? Like
Right.
your first family. And, I think if you were adopted, you perceive it differently than if you were raised by your biological parents, or you were raised by grandparents, or you were raised by, somebody else, or if your parents divorced, if there were step parents, if you had siblings, how your siblings treated you. I mean,
Yeah.
all of those relationships helped you figure out love. And love isn't, like so many things regarding relationships, it isn't like sat and taught you. It's not like you sit down and you're like, your parents are like, this is love. Like, these are your ABCs.
Right.
You learn it by observation, by watching and the feelings inside you based on how people treat you.
So it's an outward experience is what I'm hearing. It may be an outward experience.
But I think it's an
Either
internal response
yes. So it's what you
to an
either
outward experience.
yes, what you either notice or receive, whether let's say it's a hug, whether it was a parent that was very verbal and said, I love this, or I'm very proud of this. But I think when parents sometimes say, I'm very proud of you, that can send some unhealthy messaging at times.
Depending on how you perceive it. And I think
Exactly. Yes.
I think love is about perception and how you
Yeah.
perceived your treatment. Because I've had plenty
Yeah.
of patients who described love, and in my world, I would have been like, I find that hurtful.
Right.
But that's my perception. And for them, they found it to be really helpful and healing and
Yeah.
good. They appreciated that.
The beautiful thing that you're saying then, and I think a very powerful kind of mic drop moment for all of our listeners out there, is there's really, I'm being careful, right? I'm being careful because I think there can be some love that's shown that can be manipulative, that can be kind of grooming. We're not talking about that kind
Oh,
of
yeah. No,
stuff. That
nothing.
that I'm not referring to. So that's my pause if you're hearing it, and I don't want to minimize or dismiss that. If we put that on a shelf, because that's not where we're going with this episode. But I think the message that Christina is sharing with all of you is how you perceive love could be very different than how your partner versus your best friend. And there is right or wrong. There's no right or wrong. I think
Right.
recognizing and that feeling inside of you of how you feel love, it is yours. No one can take it away. We don't
Mhm.
want anyone to judge it, to
Right.
dismiss it. It's a beautiful thing that you get in connection with yourself that you've experienced from the outside, whether it was verbal or potentially physical.
Well, and if you are like me, where you sat there and you're like, oh, I don't know. I mean, I remember
Mm,
feeling loved, but I like had to literally sit and think about it. Here's our challenging gift number one to you. Like, sit with yourself.
mm,
How did you know you were loved or maybe not loved as a kid? I mean, I was just working with a gentleman last night, and he perceives no love in his childhood and now is at the age of like starting to get into romantic relationships, and he's like, I don't know. I
mm,
don't know. Like, these are the things that I like. Here's
right.
the things that make me uncomfortable. But then how do I express it? And how do I know if I love somebody? So these are some things that we're asking and talking through for him to
Right.
figure out for himself. And so I think, that's the romantic part of, but I think it's a friendship thing too. And I will also say it can evolve. And I think people think, like, if they've had a best friend for life or they've been in a marriage for like years upon years,
Right.
that a marriage is irretrievably broken if you've fallen out of love.
I hear that a
And
lot.
I'm here to say it may be. I'm not going to say it isn't, but I'm
Right.
also here to say, like, it could be a season.
Yes.
And you don't know unless you try to get back into love, if that makes sense.
It does. And I think the part about that and the other kind of gift I want to sprinkle in is that you have the opportunity and the gifting to yourself is to always take those quiet moments and get in connection
Yeah.
with how do I experience love now and how I
Mhm.
want to experience it once
Mhm.
you have that knowing you can communicate it. And especially with couples, how they experience love, perhaps let's just say in the earlier stages, the honeymoon, the fun, the passion, the silliness, the getting to know each
Sex.
other. It's beautiful. And not all couples can remember to invest in that when they have things like they're building their career, they have 2 kids, they have dogs, they have a
Right.
mortgage, and then they
Or if
show
you're like
up.
me, sandwich, you're caring for your parents
Right,
and you're caring for
sandwich.
kids.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it doesn't mean it's lost. There is that piece inside of you that has a knowing that you're missing a part, and it's getting back in connection with that piece, giving it a voice.
Yeah.
And the other thing about how you may want love in your 40s or maybe in your 30s or your 50s or your 70s may be different than in your 20s. And that's a beautiful part
100%.
that can be vulnerable and can invite connection. So knowing how you want to be loved invites curiosity.
100%. It's so interesting. Literally in my same day yesterday, I started out my morning with a gentleman that's in his 70s.
Yeah.
And, they separated for a period.
Mhm.
and his wife cheated, and now, like,
Mhm.
they've gotten back together, and he's like, "I'm really s" he goes, "I'm thrilled and I'm grieving how different love is now for us."
Mm.
And I was like, "Tell me more. Like, help
Mhm.
me understand." And he said, "Well," he goes, like, "the intense passion
Mm.
isn't there anymore." He said, "But the care has
Mm.
intensified." I'm sorry, Burton is being crazy here. But he said, "But the care and concern for one another has intensified." And he said, "And the advocacy is so strong." And he said,
So
"And,
yeah.
when we were in our 30s and 40s, we didn't need that." He said, "We
Right.
needed the passion. We needed the really good sex." He said,
Yeah.
"And now," he said, "we need the care and we need the
Mhm.
trust and we need the safety." And he said, "We've always needed the safety." But he said,
Right.
you know, "It's nice to know that if I'm struggling to walk, she's
Mm.
going to grab a chair and help me."
Right.
And he said, "And if she's having a hard time getting out of bed, I'm going to get out of bed and help her up." He's like, "Sometimes
Right.
it's those things. It's the security of like knowing how good her cooking is because I've eaten it for the past
Mm.
50 years."
Right, so their initial fireworks turned into something much more tender.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It
And so
reminds
I
me
just
of
said,
yeah.
like love evolves. It evolves. And I think
Mhm.
of that even in my friendships, when
Yeah.
I look at, I have a very close friend of mine from high school, and it's a guy,
Mhm.
never romantic. And I still would say I love him as a
Mhm.
brother, as a friend. Like, he will always be there for me, and I will always be there for him. Sometimes we're talking more, sometimes we haven't talked in a few months or longer, but I always know that there's a sense of security
Mm.
that if I needed him, he would be there. And same for him. A while
Yeah.
back, his mom was dealing with some health things, and I was his go to. And I was so honored that I was trusted with that, right? Because he's a pretty private person in a lot
Mhm.
of ways. And so, like, that friendship to me is a very loving, safe friendship. And it's crazy how we literally could go months without talking and we pick up like we just talked last week.
Mm. And I think
Like
the
there's this
beautiful
sense
part
of
about
knowing.
that yeah, the beautiful part about that friendship is that you both feel it and you both are giving, and I think at times in relationships people sometimes get caught up, like, are we 50-50 in the relationship? Whether, again, it's a friendship or romantic relationship. And
Mhm,
most of the time, people can recognize in different seasons within their own knowing, they may have a different amount to give. And
mhm.
yet, if over time the relationship has been built and there's been safety and security built within it, it's kind of like that container of that understanding and that trust that
Mhm.
just because maybe my a person isn't giving as much as I am, I know the longevity and the vulnerability and the trust within the relationship is that they're still loving and I can be accepting if they can't show up as much now. Like there's not a fragility with it. There's an acceptance because there is that longevity of connection, kind of like that gentleman you were talking about. It changed, and maybe if one of them recognized, I don't know, like the passion of the fireworks changed,
Right.
understanding the years of their connection,
Yeah.
there's a maturity to understand that there's still love, and how do we embrace where it is now while also still exploring maybe what we need.
Right. And I
Yeah.
think, you know, I think we can go back to what love was as children, and it may not have been in your immediate family. Like you said, it could have
Mhm.
been a neighbor, it could have been a grandparent, it could have been your friend's parents. I love when we interviewed Lindsay Conker, how she
Mhm.
talked about how her friend's parents like taught her so much and she still feels so loved. Like, for
Mhm.
her focus was how they taught her financially, but just
Right.
having that love of them
Mm.
is so special. And I can think of like my my closest friend when I was in grad school, we taught preschool together.
Mm.
And then, she ended up in the same graduate school I did, a year behind me in the program.
Right.
And, my parents were either traveling, they had the house in Florida, they were out in Arizona caring for my aunts and uncles, and then
Yeah.
their main house was 3 hours north of me. And so they
Mhm.
weren't right here. And so her mom was very much like a maternal figure to me. And then, I mean, ICE is leaving. And during this
Mhm.
period, her mom and I have been very, very close in communicating about everything going on and just sharing each other's passion. And I
Right.
think to myself, like, all these years later, I still feel like she thoroughly loves me and she's encouraging me to the point that, like, she and I were going back and forth, and she even called me out. Like, she was like, Christina, you need to understand different perspectives here. And it was like a very motherly,
Mm.
like,
Yeah.
teaching from knowledge and skill and being an elder. And I was
Right.
like, wow, thank you for this wisdom. At first I was like, "Oh." And then I was like, no, this is like really good wisdom that I can't get from my parents anymore.
Right.
And to me, that's love. Like sometimes love is giving wisdom, sharing your knowledge. I was interviewing parents the other day and I said, I really think you need to sit down with your daughter and help her understand if she's open to listening to you.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, but I think we've got to go back to what love isn't, right? I think
Right.
we got to talk about this like really clearly because I think people have a very blurry, especially women have a very blurry vision of what love is because
Right.
we are raised from pretty much before birth that we are supposed to serve others, take care of others, do for others. Like,
Right.
maternal instinct
Sure.
is like driven into us.
Right.
Right? And we even
And
talk about it,
yeah.
like, to think that, when your mother was in your grandmother, her eggs were being formed that created you,
Right.
so we have this, like, maternal connection that's so intense, and I think with that comes this, like, perception that we have to please others because we've also been told not to use our voice, that
Mhm.
we have to over function,
Right.
and we need to sacrifice ourselves. I think those are three big things that we are taught as women is how we show love. And I'm here to call bullshit on that.
And if that resonates with you, a gentle truth is that it's growing up either whether I experienced or whether I saw that love had to be earned back then. It makes sense if you heard that or visualized that, you ingested it, and now that became your framework, and you're doing that, right? So if I grew up either seeing or learning or hearing messages that love had to be earned, and I am now doing that because that is my only platform, and you're finding yourself exhausted or lost or doing some things that we're going to talk about in a moment, such as people pleasing or over functioning, just know, friends, that it is completely normal that you're doing that. So, that again might have been messaging that was either shown or given to you. Your beautiful brain growing up computed it, and you were doing with that data exactly what you were shown. But if you're hearing this message and you are exhausted, depleted, not knowing who you are because you just keep giving and giving. And then when you do, you get kind of that hit of like, ugh, Mrs. Smith, like, I don't know what we would do without you. You always show up for the PTA. You give so much. And you're like, I feel really good. I feel really valued. Or as a quick example, but in doing that over and over again, either it's not filling you or you're realizing I am giving so much and yet I'm exhausted. Here's the opportunity to like raise the volume because now you get to change that narrative. It might have been given to you, but again, it goes back to you get to have it's your birthday life. Something doesn't feel right to you. And now we're going to gift you how you can challenge it and start practicing it differently. It's not going to be easy. Hence, go back to episode 2, the gift of the messy middle.
Well, and I think it goes back to internal self confidence. If
Mm,
you believe that you deserve love, not based on your actions in doing for others, but intrinsically because of who you are,
right,
then you're able to move past that wrongful teaching, right? You're
right,
able to realize that you are worthy of love because you exist.
right. You know who just did? Oh, I forgot his name. the actor who just passed away from Dawson's Creek.
Oh, that was so sad.
Oh, there's a message from him. Maybe Haley. Yeah, it has been brutally sad. There's some things that I have seen that have just like touched me to the core about love, right?
Yeah.
There was a picture of like Alfonso Ribeiro who had gone to see him before he passed. And in this picture, if you haven't seen it, it is so beautiful about friendship, and it's sad. And we always talk about the gift of and it could be both. But someone had posted this video that really encompasses a lot of like we're saying that you are worthy of love
Mm-hmm.
just because of who you are. And he said it in such an eloquent, beautiful, like there's just a hearing and taking that in. And that can be a very hard message. I mean, for someone who also, Christy and I both do EMDR therapy, I've been doing it for 25 years. And I will say, probably one of the biggest things that bring people in, or one of the challenging belief systems, to go on a little tangent for a second, is struggling with I am worthy. So we're here today saying you are worthy of love. And if you are struggling with that, just know, friends, you're not the only one. And it also could be happening from what was shown to you. The hope is that like the people who showed you things that may not have been the healthiest or what you needed, they did the best that they could with what they had. It doesn't mean that it was what you needed, but knowing now and recognizing that you have a knowing of what you do need, now you get to change and go find it. And that's the piece that we also want to empower you with this episode. So, okay, I went on a tangent today.
No, that's okay. You know what? I have what's been sitting on my mind, and I just have to say it. And, Helene and I have hinted to our religious beliefs, but I have to really talk about what I was taught love was as a young child. And it came from my mom, and it came from the Bible in Corinthians. And it just keeps screaming to me that love is patient, kind, does not envy, does not boast, is not proud, does not dishonor others, is not self seeking, is not anger, and keeps no records of wrong, which was in Corinthians. And that has always been, when I sat and thought about it with my therapist, I was taught that very early, and that to be kind of my anchor and
Mm,
how I judged what I was receiving. And if it didn't fit in those categories,
right.
I was like, that ain't love, you know?
Ooh, very powerful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I've kind of been like, I'm like, oh, I don't want to bring the Bible into this and like make this religious. And this isn't a sermon. I'm just saying that that was the definition I was taught as a child. And I think it's a really solid definition
Right.
of what love is. And so I think when you are questioning, and this is something that I did in friendships, this is something that I did in romantic relationships, and then this is something that I've tried my best to do as a parent, not saying I'm perfect, but how do I love on people? And this is in
Mhm.
my mind. And particularly because I am a competitive person, like not envious, not jealous, right? Like
Right.
I have really always made a very conscious effort to be like, love is cheering people on and
Mhm.
celebrating their wins. Even if you are in a losing part of life, even if you're not winning, you can still celebrate who they are and their successes.
Right. It reminds me of like luck doesn't have to be this big grandiose thing. And I know a couple weeks ago we dropped the gift of courage. And then, on the weekends, my husband and I will play pickleball. And it's interesting when you play pickleball, like you see potentially, or at least sometimes I do, the dynamics between people and
Yeah.
or just how people are, whether they're competitive or whatever it is. But sometimes there'll be like different dynamics if we play with all men or if there's a dynamic with all women. And, people are just people. And
Right.
we did one game, and this was like several weeks ago. And Ryan and I played against two women. And there definitely was a dynamic. There was definitely an energy. It was an experience. The next game we played, and I did an oomph. It didn't go well. And then I did something really good. I was like, whoa. And the woman that I was playing with, again, so it was a husband and wife, and we were playing. She just happened to like stop for a second. She's like, that was awesome. So at the end of it, I said to her, you know what I want to tell you? And she's like, what? I'm like, "You're a woman's woman, and I just want to tell you thank you." And she got
Yeah.
teary-eyed. She said that, and she was like, like 10, 15 years older than me. And she said, "That was the best, thing I could have ever been told." She said, "I just retired working in, like a big corporate America thing, and sometimes you experience things that could just be hard or heavy.
Mhm.
And you just shared with me, wow, playing the game, I was a woman's woman." And it was
Mhm.
just like spreading some love and just having the courage to say, wow, like you said something really positive. You felt compelled and you stopped the game for a second and you shared that with me. And I just wanted to tell you thank you. So love can be shown in little things or in big gestures, but seeing how you feel about it and then wanting to share it can be beautiful. But you don't want to share it in ways that potentially can be depleting to you. So that's where Christy and I
Right.
are now going to talk about, like, what is love versus maybe overgiving in ways such as people pleasing, abandoning who you are, things like that.
Well, and I think it's also, when you withhold love and punish yourself because
Mhm.
you're not meeting your own, maybe, and most often, impossible expectations, right? Like,
Yes.
we are quick to give grace when somebody else makes a mistake, but when we make mistakes, the internal dialogue is pretty nasty. Like, "Oh, you fucked up. You're not good enough. Like, you'll never measure up." I mean, we all do it. Don't get me
Yes.
wrong. And I feel like the constant theme in my office is when you make a mistake, you have a choice in that moment. And I look at it as you literally have two choices. You either can say, "I made a mistake," torture yourself, beat yourself up, punish yourself, or you can say, "I made a mistake. How do I learn from this? How do I do differently next time?
Right.
Where's my growth moment?" And I think love is allowing yourself to make mistakes and grow,
Mhm.
where withholding love and punishing yourself is that self torture and the deprecation of ourselves and like putting ourselves down, right?
Right. And it isolates
Yeah.
ourselves. I mean, I challenge people out there, if you ever do any of that, like name calling yourself, because let me tell you, I call it out in my office all the time, nicely. But I'll pause and say, "Are you aware that we've been in here for 25 minutes and you've already name called yourself or put yourself down like 3 times?" And I will tell you, most of the time, most people are not even aware
Yeah.
how easily they do it. And
They've
I
learned
know
it.
they wouldn't do it to their child, to their best friend, to their partner. So if I just invite you to be curious over the next couple of weeks and just say,
Or who modeled that for you and you think you
right.
need to do that and you
Yeah.
think that's your way of staying humble and I'm here to call bullshit on that. No.
Yeah.
Because what you say out loud about yourself is what you're
Mhm.
also hearing back, and then that's what you're presenting. And so, I think too, women really, 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 really struggle with rest. They don't feel
Mm.
that they deserve rest.
Right.
And like rest is absolutely equated with guilt. Like if I sit down and just drink my cup of tea,
Mm.
I need to now punish myself that I didn't get 20 things done and left my tea to get cold, you know?
Right.
Um, and I think when you authentically love yourself, you
Mhm.
set really good boundaries around rest and value
Mhm.
your rest.
Right. And it values you. The more you keep challenging potentially, it's like an intersection. When you start recognizing some of the things that maybe we're talking about, and then you either offer grace, permission, celebration, it's new muscle memory. I love you, and I recognize how much you're needing rest, and I'm sitting you down, meaning
Yeah.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're modeling that. I mean, I always
Yeah.
remind women, like, I think, we are chronically being watched. We're being watched by children, we're being watched by younger women, we're being
Mm.
watched by older women, whether we're a strong leader or not. Like, we are a very observant gender
Right.
and we're being watched. And when you can model those healthy things, you're modeling others to give permission to do the same for themselves.
Right.
So when you model how to love yourself,
Yeah.
you know, that's huge. That's absolutely huge. And you know, we've talked in past episodes. Sometimes loving yourself is literally making the doctor's appointment that you've been putting down. Like, that is
Mhm.
love because you're taking care of yourself.
Right.
Love is caring for you. And so, you know, I think giving yourself compassion, giving
Mm,
yourself the grace that you were so quick to give everybody else, realizing that, you need to evolve, you need to make mistakes because you're going to learn from them. And
right.
mistakes are education. You know,
Yeah.
one of the things that I really struggled with when we moved up here was like figuring out who we were, what we're going to do now. And I, for a long time, carried so much guilt. Like, Christina, you should have had a really strong plan before your house sold in Florida. You had time. Like, that was something I constantly played in my head.
Right.
And I thought, Christina, it finally literally took me years, and it's been in the last year. I've said, Christina, there was way too many variables you couldn't have.
Mhm.
There was so many things that you didn't know until you got here.
Right.
So
Right.
expecting yourself to have had this like total like intense plan for the next 5 years, you would have failed because you didn't have the knowledge to create that plan.
Right. You hadn't been there yet.
Right. Well, I mean, I hadn't been here in 20 years, but 15 years, I guess 15 years.
But
But
not in living there now as a
not
married
living
woman
here,
with
married
2
with
kids.
kids in this
Right.
town. Right.
Right. And it goes back to, I think a great gift that you can give yourself is that when you tell yourself, I have never met you, meaning you, like,
Mhm.
hey, you in the mirror, I've never met you in how you are today. And I
Yeah.
want to learn from you. And that's when you can invite yourself to be curious. And it may challenge some of those past, tape recordings that are in your brain. And I think the other thing that's beautiful that happens that when you start looking at yourself and you're saying, hey, I haven't met you yourself yet. And here we are. You could also maybe then practice receiving love from other people. Because overall, I think, women are better at giving and
Yes.
maybe if you're like us, at times we struggle with receiving because if you are going to receive love, some things it might require is slowing down,
Mm.
letting go of perceived control.
Mhm.
And I think the other thing that's actually incredibly beautiful and also highly uncomfortable for many of us is that in order to receive love, you have to trust.
Mhm.
You have to allow yourself to trust the experience, trust the process, trust the connection, the person, and trust yourself to be able to receive it. So you have to challenge some of those negative beliefs that are getting in your way. So, yeah,
I think that goes hand in hand with letting go of your perceived inadequacies. Like, we are so quick to focus on all the things we're not enough
right.
instead of realizing all the things we are
I
more
am.
than enough.
Right.
And that's when you can truly love yourself. When you can realize, I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to be able to do
Mhm.
everything, have everything, know everything.
Right.
What I can offer myself, first and foremost,
Yeah.
and others around me is an abundance.
Mm, that's beautiful. Yeah.
And that to me is love. That's
Mhm.
love of yourself.
Yeah.
When you realize
Absolutely.
your worth isn't based on your inadequacies. And I think it goes back to the Bible verse that I shared and giving that to yourself.
Right.
And then when you can give it to yourself, you're going to be much more equipped to give it to others that you're in relationship with.
Right. Because when you allow yourself to feel it, and if it's a positive feeling, a warm feeling, a letting go feeling, whatever it is to you, whatever you would name it. And then imagine you blowing on it and it gets bigger. And then you blow on it and it gets bigger. And if you can get in connection of how that feels for you, and then imagine sharing that, it goes back to that trickle effect. When you have a positive experience within yourself and you allow it either to be visible and seen or you can like pay it on to others, whether it's through teaching or action or words. All of that is going to change so much within your immediate existence and community.
Mhm. Yeah. One of the things that's been for me beautiful with everything going on in Minneapolis is the love.
Mm,
And it's been really cool to see community just caring for one another,
mm, yeah.
not in a boastful, arrogant way, because that isn't love,
No.
but just
Mm,
in a kind, caring, whether it's a smile,
mm,
whether it's, going to a store that you wouldn't go to, whether it's, helping a neighbor out. It's been really incredible to see how
mm,
our community has genuinely loved on one another.
mm,
And sometimes love is protecting. Sometimes love is caring and being kind. Sometimes love is, you know, doing things that stretch you
mhm.
in so long as it's intrinsically aligned with your morals and values.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
so, I've avoided on social media with It's Your Birthday to talk about this because I don't want it to be our image. And I want to talk about the beauty that I've seen in such chaos and tragedy. And sometimes it takes chaos and tragedy for us to really sit with ourselves and figure out what love is for us. Sometimes it
Right.
takes a really big
Yeah.
moment of grief or feeling guilt to be able to have to work through that messy middle
Right.
to figure out what love is for us. And as you said in the beginning, Helene, love evolves.
Mm,
Within yourself, it evolves, and within relationships, it evolves. It's not a constant, it's not
mm,
stagnant.
right.
It also ebbs and flows like an ocean,
Yeah.
right?
How
And
beautiful is that? That if you just sit with that beautiful thing that you just shared, they're reminding of everyone that love ebbs and flows. It changes like waves. When you're in connection either with yourself, a community like Christine is experiencing, or a relationship, and you allow yourself to embrace that it's going to ebb and flow. Friends, the beautiful part about that is you get to experience all different kinds of love,
right.
all different volumes of it, all different experiences from it. So challenge yourself if you think that love has to be a permanent ink definition. If you allow itself to flow within you and the experience, you learn and you gain possibly so much more love and beauty.
Oh, I just got goosebumps. Oh, I have the chills. Yes, it's so true. Oh, and you know, I think one of the amazing, amazing gifts for you and I that have come out of It's Your Birthday is the opportunity to love on our audience and to love on the women in our lives, whether they're people that we know or people that we've never
Mm,
met. And our whole dream of teaching women to celebrate themselves was, a big part of it was the opportunity to love on them and encourage
mm,
them and teach them. And I think when you learn to love yourself, then you will learn to celebrate yourself.
mm,
Yeah. Wow. This is powerful. And I
mm.
think if you're struggling with this, that is why we have created the retreats we've created. Because behind every one of them is a lesson in how to love yourself. Every topic that we've done, the core of it is learning to love yourself.
Mhm. Yeah.
It really is. So, friends, thank you so much today for taking the time to listen. This was a huge step in giving yourself love. You are not behind love. You are not unworthy of love. You are right where you belong, and you deserve to be loved by yourself first and foremost. And when you can model that, you can model that for others. You are learning in real life, present moments. Helene and I truly hope that you keep learning each and every day like we do. Share this with those that you know need a reminder in self love. If you're needing more of yourself, check out our courses, yourbirthdaypodcast.com. go to the courses tab, click on the link to download, and you will be walked right through it. In the meantime, come hang out with us on social and catch our gifts from the couch on Mondays. Until next week, happy birthday, friends.